What's your name and what was your hometown when you joined?
My name is Jerry Kniffen, and I was raised and brought up in the Sacramento area, a little town called Orangeville. And before I went into the Marine Corps, I was a grocery store clerk about half-time.
Under what circumstances did you enter the Marine Corps?
Well, the reason I joined the Marine Corps was, go back in time a little bit, in 1965 I was going to join the Navy with a friend of mine, but I stuttered so bad at the time, they wanted me to spend the night and come back the next morning to see a psychiatrist about my stuttering. So consequently, I didn't stay. They made me 4F, and about a year and a half later, I got a induction letter into the Army. Well, I didn't want to go in the Army, so I went down to Marine Corps Recruiter, and they had a 4-year aviation contract, so I signed up for 4 years.
What specific unit were you assigned to, and where was it stationed?
My Pacific unit in Vietnam, I was in Marble Mountain, and I was with the Purple Foxes, HMM 364.
What kind of training did you receive, and what was the most helpful part of your training?
Well, after boot camp, since I was aviation guarantee, we went to a little town called Millington, Tennessee, which is just outside of Memphis. And so there I underwent basic maintenance on aircraft and machinery. Then after that I went to a 6-week jet engine school, and then after that I went to the helicopter school. Then shortly after that I was transferred to Santa Ana, California, to the what we called LTA, and I was stationed there for a little over a year and a half doing training. It was a training squadron. It was HMMT 364. So I was pretty well trained before I even left stateside, or I could do all the active duty as far as being a crew chief or what the case may have been at the time.
What was the mission of your unit?
Well, our mission was in support of the Da Nang area for the Marine Corps and Army outfits. We would do anything from flying resupply to medevacs, recon missions, search and rescue. That was basically what our mission was.
What was your rank in your job?
Well, my rank was E4 Corporal, and for my first couple months I just did maintenance on the aircraft, and I went in training to be a crew chief, but I decided I didn't want to be the crew chief because I enjoyed working on the aircraft quite a bit, but I would work nights most of the time and I would fly days. And I flew basically from the 1st of October until my R&R in April. I did a little over 380 combat missions. So I had enough experience, and I think I was pushing the envelope a little bit, so I decided better for me to just do maintenance.
What was a typical day like in your life during the war?
Well, as I said, I worked nights a lot, so I would, at nighttime, I'd go to the line shack, see what missions were going to be on the next day, and I'd sign up. I basically could choose my mission, so I'd sign up for a mission, and then I'd hang around, get a little sleep until time to fly, then I'd go flying, and then after the day of flying, I'd go back and get a little sleep, and then I'd go in for night crew, and that was my typical day for about 4.5 months.
Did your parents approve of you serving in the military?
Okay, when I joined the Marine Corps, I went home and told my parents that I had joined the Marine Corps rather than be drafted, and they were very supportive of me joining the Marine Corps.
How did you feel about leaving home?
Oh, I was a little nervous at first going into the Marine Corps because I'd heard horror stories of the boot camp. But after I got down there and after the first couple of days, you get settled in, and I was from a relatively disciplined family anyway, and one of my good friends was like an uncle to me. He was next door. He was a retired general of the Army. And so he told me what to expect, and between my brothers being in the service, it wasn't that bad, and I was looking forward to going someplace and get some more training, meet people, travel the world. I wasn't necessarily wanting to go to Vietnam, but if I had to go, then so be it, and it worked out really good for me.
How did you communicate with loved ones back home during that time?
I just wrote letters back and forth. I did make one Mars call once. Outside of that, it was just through letter writing.
What was different when you got back?
Well, it was a whole new world. It felt like, because being out of the country for a year, and with all the news and demonstrations, you come back and it was just a totally new world. So many things had happened that you didn't even know had happened. I remember when Apollo 13 had the problem, I didn't know anything about it until long after it happened, because it wasn't one of those things that was widely talked about.
Describe your feelings during combat operations.
My feeling on the combat missions that I flew while in Vietnam virtually would change day to day, because you tried not to get complacent, because you get complacent, you get killed. And you could be flying a CNC, which is resupply, or you fly a medevac mission, or you do insertions. You had to always be on your toes, and I felt keyed up all the time. And then, of course, once any mission was over with, then until your next mission, you could just totally relax, be yourself. But one thing, though, since I do have a speech impediment, it seemed like anytime I was in combat and flying, I spoke very clear and had no problem communication. So I always thought that was kind of ironic. But overall, I got used to the combat and accepted day-to-day life, which for any crew member could be devastating at any given time, because, as I said, I had a little over 380 missions, and some of them were pieces of cake, and then some of them were real hair-raising.
What was your happiest or funniest or saddest memory of the war?
Some of the missions I went on were rather amusing. We're flying along one day, we're flying real low, and I see a Vietnamese fella out there, and he's having problems with his water buffalo, and he's got this great big stick, and he's just beating the hell out of this thing. We were gone probably 20 minutes. We were dropping some supplies off, and we come back, and this little sucker was still beating this thing, and I just thought that was so amazing. He'd been beating that thing forever. And then I remember on another mission, we would drop some troops just outside a village, maybe 100 yards. And as the troops got off, the ramp was still down. This little teeny dog, like a chihuahua, just a little teeny thing. It marched right up the ramp, got in the middle of the aircraft, looked at everybody, did some barking, and turned around like, "I told you," and he goes walking off the ramp. It was so funny. It was just things like that are what kept you going, But I don't want to get in any detail or anything of the other missions, But there was one mission we went on, and it was one of those hair-raising ones. We were doing troop insertion, and there was relatively high elephant grass. And well, in the 46, you've got a cargo hold that's about 3 foot by 3 foot, and most of the time you have a cargo hook in there for external loads. Well, this particular aircraft that day, we didn't have the cargo hook in it, and there's two doors, a lower door and upper door. Well, the lower door was cranked back into the open position, and we're dropping these Marines off. And if that door was to come open and bang open, it makes a distinct noise. Well, as we were landing, I hear it make the noise, so I turned and looked at it. I was flying left gun at the time. I turned and looked at it, and we had a tree stump about 2 foot around, about 4 inches from the top of the ceiling in the aircraft. So I got the pilot's attention. I says, "Do not take off." I can't remember the co-pilot's name, but I told the co-pilot, I want you to look in the rear here at the hell hole and decide who's going to lift this aircraft off. So they did, and we had to hover very slowly up to clear it, though. But we've had a couple of other interesting things close to that too. But that was rather interesting. Now as I look back and in my feelings on spending 4 years in the Marine Corps, especially in an aviation outfit and a helicopter squadron, I found it to be totally exciting and very, very educational, and the camaraderie of the friends I've made and the squadrons I've been in. I just always found it just really satisfying, and to serve the Marine Corps like that there, I was just so proud of everybody that I served with. Always had a lot of great officers, good sergeants, and it was very exciting. And plus, it gave me a career for when I got out of the Marine Corps. It just opened doors for me, because after I got out of the Marine Corps, I joined the National Guard in a Chinook outfit in Stockton, California, and I did that for 25 years. So it really set me for a career. So it was really good for me.
What would you want people to know about this time in history?
If you were to compare the war that's been going on for the last 10 years with that of Vietnam, one thing I'd like people to know is that everybody I associated with in the Marine Corps and friends that I had in other branches of service, everybody over there, we were doing a job. We had no political affiliations. We had no right war or wrong war. It was just our duty. And myself and everybody I know in my squadron, we always did the best we could do to our capability and beyond to do successful missions and to get the job done. I'm not too sure who's going to be watching this interview, but I'd like to thank all my fellow Marines whom I've served with while in the Purple Foxes in Vietnam there for doing such a good job and doing the best they could so the biggest majority of us could come back uninjured and looking after everybody.